Now, we know that most of the job roles and industries today require public speaking skills to communicate and engage with team members and audiences confidently. Strong public speaking skills increase your chances of becoming a more effective employee in your organization. In fact, public speaking is one of the top communication skills that employers look for in a potential candidate. Thankfully, you can improve these skills through practice. Now, today we have a very special guest with us who is Akshat Srivastava, who is a communication and public speaking coach who've trained over 7,500 plus professionals on communication and public speaking. Akshat is a distinguished Toastmaster, the highest recognition by Toastmasters International USA. He is not only one of the 200 content creators from India to be selected for LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program in 2022, but is also one of the content creators for Teal Feed Creators program. Akshat, a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and agreeing to do this for us and for our participants as well. Thank you so much.
Pleasure is all mine, Shiva.
Akshat, without any further delay, I would like to hand over the floor to you. Please, all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Shiva, for that wonderful introduction. I am thrilled to be in this room today. And I can see hundreds of people in the room. I was told that people will be joining us from all over the country today. So I would love to know, where are you guys joining us today from? Let me know in the chat box. Which city are you joining us today from? Bangalore, Kaviti said Hyderabad, Kolkata, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Surat, Pune. Lovely, wonderful. Anand, Gujarat, Pune, Ajmer, Philippines. Wow, Gurgaon. Lovely. So how many of you love speaking in public? Type love in the chat box. If you love speaking in public, type love in the chat box. I can see so many people typing love in the chat box. It makes me feel so good about this session. I love the energy in the room. Wonderful. And how many of you are beginning to find that love for speaking? You're learning and trying to find that love for speaking. Type learn in the chat box. Learn. So many people learning, trying to find their love for speaking. Superb. Wonderful. Over next 1 hour, I'm going to share with you some ideas, some really outstanding ideas about public speaking. Now, I have taken more than a decade to learn, inculcate these ideas. And today I can finally teach it to the world. Over next 1 hour, I'm going to teach you what makes you an impactful speaker, how to overcome stage fright like a pro, what is the right body language to be on stage. I will also give you some references, books, and I will tell you 5 steps that you can use to become an impactful speaker. How many of you would want that? Type want in the chat box. I absolutely love the energy which people are coming here. Superb. This makes me really feel fantastic about this session. At the end of this session, at the end of 1.5 hours that we're going to have, I'm going to share with you a free gift. I'm going to give you a free gift that you can use to take your public speaking skills to the next level. So make sure you stay in the room till the very end of this session. So let's set some ground rules for this session. I'm going to set some ground rules and I want you to follow this thoroughly, right? The first ground rule for this webinar is to log out of all social medias that you have. Do you use Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever you use? For next 1 hour, log out of all social media and pay full attention to this webinar so that you absorb the maximum. Ground rule number 2, that if you have some questions, I want you to keep a note of them, because we can see how active the chat is. The question might get lost here and there. Keep a note of it, and at the end, we'll give you the stage to answer your questions. Keep a note of them. And ground rule number 3 is finally, keep showing your love in the chat box. It would make me feel better about this session. It will encourage me to give you my best. So if you like something that I said, if you find something interesting, make sure you tell me in the chat box. All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a little bit more about myself. My name is Akshat Srivastav. I'm a communication and a public speaking coach. In the last 3 years, I've spoken to people around the world and trained more than 7,000 professionals from some top companies. From CEOs in New York City to IT professionals in Canada, startup founders in India to business leaders in Dubai. I've been fortunate to work with some really outstanding individuals. And that's what I do. I help people communicate with confidence, authenticity, and impact. But I wasn't always like this. There was a time in my life when I was a very shy and introvert teenager. Do you know those guys who sit at the back of the class and they clap for others? I was that guy. It was the early 2000s. Social media was just around the corner, and shows like the Great Indian Laughter Challenge, Indian Idol were on TV. Do you remember those days? No, that's when I was a teenager. And I could see that there was a plethora of talent everywhere. People were coming out with talent. Some were dancing, some were singing, some were doing different things. And I often asked myself, what are you good at? And for a long time, answer was always the same. Nothing. I was good at nothing. Have you guys ever felt something like this? If you have felt something like this, type yes in the chat box. When I went to college, I met even more talented people. Some of my friends doing started their own dance crews. Some people started singing. Some people went on doing debates. Some people started modeling on stage. A lot of things started happening. But I was still the same. Every evening, I used to sit in my hostel room, looking out of the window, asking myself that same age-old question. Akshat, what are you good at? And answer was still the same. Nothing. All of us have that one college senior who we can't say no to. So one of that college senior one day reached out to me and he said, Akshat, you have to organize an event and you have to host it. Now, I had never hosted anything in my life. And going on the stage was the last thing I would have ever tried. But I couldn't say no to him. I had to go on stage. I prepared a script, prepared everything that I would do, went on stage. On the day of the event, I looked at the audience looked at me, and I knew we are in the end game now. I forgot everything. There were shivers down my spine. I was literally clueless what was happening. But with some little bit of effort, I was somehow able to finish the event. As soon as the event got over and I came down, there was a loud, thunderous applause from the audience. And that applause changed everything. You see, there are moments in our life when you find out that you could do something that you've been fearing for so long. Now that is a life-changing. That was that life-changing. And for the first time in my life, I clapped for myself. The reason I'm telling you this story today is because many moments in our life give us direction that completely changes the game for us. And for many of you, I can see more than 350 people in the room. For many of you, this could be that event that puts you into a new direction in your life. So for next 1 hour, pay attention. So let me share my screen and start this session without any delay. So what do you guys think makes someone an impactful speaker? I would love to see some answers from you guys. What do you think makes someone an impactful speaker? Venkatesh says communication. Shrikavi says confidence, engaging, body language, boldness, meaningful communication, passion, persuasive, storytelling. All of you guys are right. Voice modulation, connecting with the audience. Wonderful. All of you guys are fantastic. A few years back, I was speaking at a college and a girl came up to me and she told me that, sir, I am very confident on stage. I can go and speak for hours. Do I still need to learn public speaking? And I said to her, I am very confident in dancing. I'm not afraid of dancing. Does that make me a good dancer? I used to think that if I'm confident and I go on stage and I speak with confidence, I'm a good speaker. But over time, I found out that there are a lot of things that actually make someone a good speaker. A lot of things that you guys mentioned in the chat box. Let me tell you a few things that actually help you become an impactful speaker. Of course, it starts with confidence. Then there is something called as charisma, how you interact with your audience, the kind of aura that you carry, the kind of energy that you have. Then there is passion, passion for the subject, how you engage with the audience. Does the audience find your content exciting? The way you communicate with them, is it exciting enough? The kind of body language you have, because the body language shows your confidence, shows how interesting you are as a person. We'll talk more about it as the session progresses. How you use the stage, using the stage strategically. The way you tell stories, the way you connect with your audience, use of visuals, like this presentation that I'm using is a visual that you can see. How you persuade, inspire, entertain an audience. The kind of words you use, the kind of phrases that you use. Your vocal variety, your expressions, your energy, the way you structure your speech, because the way you structure your speech makes a big difference. That's how your audience will remember what you said. How often do you use emotions? Human beings are emotional creatures. The way you use logic and facts. So there are so many things that make someone an impactful speaker. And when I was very early in my career as a speaker, I often used to think that if I'm just confident or if I can speak good English, I'm done. But that's what I understand now. I was so wrong back then. Now, what is the first thing that you need to understand to begin a journey as a speaker, or if you want to become a good speaker? So, when that girl asked me, why should I learn public speaking? I actually understood that one actually needs to understand the reason to do anything. Okay. So I'm going to share with you 6 ways that if you start speaking in public, it will transform your life and it will transform your career. These are the 6 ways public speaking, going on stage, speaking to people, transform my life. So would you guys like to share something in chat box? How do you think public speaking changes you as a person? I'm waiting for some answers in the chat box. How do you think public speaking can help you become a better person? It can have you better career. Confidence makes you confident, of course. Improve your leadership skills, networking skills, help you create an impact. You gain confidence, risk taking, motivation, trust, leadership skills. People admire you, shed inhibitions. So all of you guys are correct. You become influential, of course. It makes you more expressive, improves your communication skills. Wonderful. You guys are rocking. All of your answers are correct, right? Let me tell you how public speaking actually transformed my life, right? So the first thing that changed for me was my self-confidence and self-esteem. Now, every time you go and do something that's challenging, that puts you out of your comfort zone, the first thing that changes is something within. And that was the first thing that changed for me. When I started speaking on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, I could see myself taking more challenges and doing better there. Even if I screwed up a speech, screwed up a session, just the process of going and doing it made me feel better about myself. As a result, my self-esteem went up. So that's the first thing that happens. Transformation starts within. The second thing that happened with me was when I became more confident within, when I started feeling better about myself, it started reflecting in my personality. You see, every time you go to the gym and you start exercising, you're the first person who notices that probably something is happening. Only then and then other people start noticing it. Of course, the transformation happens within, and then slowly starts reflecting in your personality. The way you talk to people, when you walk into a room, the kind of aura you carry, it starts to change. So the more you speak in public, the more changes start happening in your personality. The third thing that happened with me was when I started my content creation journey. So I create a lot of content on LinkedIn. I used to take those pictures of me speaking in public and post them on social media. And I found out that just by posting those pictures on social media, I gained a lot of credibility because people started looking up to me as if a person who can who can share his opinion, who can stand in front of a crowd and teach them something. So it helped me build a really good personal brand online. Apart from that, how it helps in networking. For example, now there are more than 400 people in the room right now, and I'm a speaker today. All of you know me now. Best way to network is to go and become a speaker at an event. If you're a speaker, networking happens on its own. People know you on its own. You don't have to go and talk to each and every individual one-on-one. And that's how it helps you build a powerful brand. At the same time, it helps you network better. Then interpersonal communication skills. So every time you come on stage and you start speaking, you're always trying to work out in your head, how do I say it better? How do I structure my thoughts better? How do I say more in less words? When you do it over and over and over again, you start speaking to the point. That's what happened with me. I started becoming more crisp in my words. And it definitely helped me improve on my communication skills, right? Do you guys agree that by speaking in public over and over again, you will become more articulate, you'll become more crisp and more to the point? If you guys agree, type yes in the chat box. Wonderful. The fifth way public speaking transformed my life and how the way it can transform your life is by enhancing creativity. So I participated in the international speech contest a few years back. I went up to the 4th level. If I would have won there, I would have gone to the semifinals of World Championship of Public Speaking. And while I was preparing those speeches there, what I understood is that I was trying to give the same message in different ways. I was figuring out different ways to give the same message, trying to work on my stories, trying to work on the content. It really gave me a new perspective to look at the same things. Now, the way human mind works, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So for me, public speaking became an outlet to work on my creativity. It gave me an approach to think about the same things in different ways, right? So that's how it helps you become more creative. Only if, even if you're a professional, whether you're a CA, you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, only by going and speaking to an audience, by preparing your presentations, by thinking ways, trying to do something, will enhance your creativity. And finally, it overpowers limiting beliefs. So a few years back, I met this guy at an event, and this guy came to me and he asked me a question. He said, Akshat, you're a public speaker, and I don't know if I can ever become a good public speaker. I asked him, what makes you think so? So he said, there are certain things I just cannot do in life. And public speaking is one of them. I did not try to persuade this guy. I said, okay, that's all right. If that's what you believe, that's okay. But I told him before going that go and join a Toastmasters club, join a speaking community, and that will definitely give you some idea on whether you can actually do it or not. And then after a few months, I met this guy. I never thought that he would actually go and join a community of speakers, but he did go and join a community of speakers. And when I met him for the second time, he said to me that, Akshat, I can actually do it. I always thought that I couldn't do it. But when I went on stage, when I started doing it, I found out that I could do it. And I only wonder what are the things that I can do, but I still think that I can't do. So that's how his limiting belief was overcome. And that actually gave him a perspective. When you start going and speaking in public, helps you overcome those limiting beliefs. If you guys are enjoying the session till now, if you're learning something new, type enjoy in the chat box. I can see so many people type enjoy. Lovely. Now comes the most important question. Now, I've been asked this question over and over again. Akshat, how do I manage stage fright? Do you guys have this question? Do you guys often get blank when you go on stage? Do you find it difficult to control your nerves? Do you feel shivers down your spine? Do you guys feel that? I can see a lot of people typing yes, yes, that happens, right? So before understanding how to manage stage fright, let's try to understand what is stage fright and why does it really happen? So if you look at evolutionary psychology, you'll find an answer there. The reason we fear the stage is because we fear judgment. So why do we fear judgment so much? Would someone like to share in the chat box? Why do you think we fear judgment? People will not accept my views. Words don't come out. I go blank suddenly. That's pretty natural because of the expectations. Of course, of course. So if you look at how human beings evolved over thousands and millions of years, now in a hunter-gatherer world, human beings used to live in small tribes. They used to hunt, gather, live in small tribes. The world was very wild, and it was impossible for someone to survive without a tribe. If they went alone in the jungle, they most probably wouldn't survive a few days. That's the reason it was very important to have a tribe to support your survival. What really happened is that over time, people developed a thought process. We developed a subconscious thought process that we need to belong. We need to belong to the tribe. If we don't belong, we'll die. Now, imagine in such a situation, if someone was told to stand up and speak and they say something wrong, they will be out of the tribe. And if they're out of the tribe, they will not survive a few days in the wild. And that's the reason we started fearing judgment. So you feel that the judgment, the fear is yours. It's actually not yours. It came from your ancestors. This fear that we have of public speaking is very natural. And if you go and shiver on stage, it's not because you did something wrong or because you don't have the capacity. It's very natural. It came from our ancestors. And that's what I want you to do. So how to train your subconscious mind? So you cannot consciously overcome the stage fright because millions of years of memories have made you fear this, fear the judgment. Okay. How to make sure, train your subconscious mind, how to use biohacks to make yourself feel calmer on stage. That's what I'm going to share with you today. Are you guys excited? Would you guys like to know how to overcome stage fright? If you would like to know, type yes, I know. I want to know in the chat box. Lovely. Let's look at the first thing, the first way you can overcome or you can manage stage fright. First idea is to breathe. Let's understand. If a tiger comes in front of you right now, what will happen? Breathing will suddenly become very fast. Your blood will start flowing into your legs and in your hands so that you get into a fight or a flight mode. It's evolutionary. That's how our bodies work under danger. So what happens? Your breathing becomes fast. That gives signal to your brain that something is wrong. Your brain starts sending blood into your hands and legs. All of that happens. How do you make sure that your breathing does not become fast? That's where this comes into picture. You take control of your breathing. Before you have to go on stage, you take deep breaths. Slowly 5 seconds in, hold for 5 seconds, slowly let go from your mouth. Can you guys do that with me? I know you must be, I cannot see you, but I know you might be doing it with me. Okay, 5 seconds, deep breathe, inhale. What you're doing is you're reducing your cortisol levels. Every time you could take control of your breathing, you slow down, you reduce the cortisol level. Cortisol is a stress hormone that we have. When you reduce that, you start feeling more calmer. So people who do pranayama on a day-to-day basis are generally more calm than other people. That's why yoga works. That's why meditation works, because it changes your chemistry in certain ways, right? The first way to manage stage fright is to breathe deeply. That's what I did before this session. I took deep breaths. I want you guys to remember this. Okay. The next one is to exercise. So speakers like Tony Robbins, Robin Sharma, these big speakers you guys would have heard of. Have you guys heard of that? Have you heard of Tony Robbins, Robin Sharma? Aditya says no, go and search about them. Okay, these are like big speakers. Now, what do they do before they get on stage? They always make sure that they exercise, a little bit of light exercise, because when you exercise, it pumps you up. So if you cannot overcome stage fright consciously, you have to make sure that you use your chemistry, your body's chemistry to do it. What you're doing, you're exercising, you're pushing in adrenaline in your body, and you're pumping yourself up, right? If you go for a run and you come back, you feel more excited, right? You feel more alive, right? Now, before the session, I don't want you to do it too much. Otherwise, you will feel tired and you will be breathing, you'll be panting. That's not something you want. But a little bit of exercise, a little bit of push-ups, a little bit of jumping jacks will pump you up. The next one is turn fear into excitement. Now, this is something that's really very interesting that I read. In one of the books, I read that the chemical in the brain that generates fear is the same chemical that generates excitement. It's the same fear. It's the same chemical. How do you make sure that that chemical is generating excitement and not the fear? How do you do that? It's by setting the right context. Before you go on stage, if the thought process is that I'm so scared, oh my God, what if I forgot my speech? What if I'm not able to perform well? That same chemical will generate fear. But if you tell yourself that I'm so excited for this session, I'm so excited to get on stage, I'm so excited to talk to people, you set this context. If this you tell this to your brain, that same adrenaline will create excitement and not fear. Okay, so Vishal is saying converting nervous energy. Absolutely, Vishal, that's right. That's how you convert nervous energy into excitement, and that's what I want you to remember. So these are certain biohacks that you need to remember. Breathe, exercise, turn fear into excitement. The next one, keep an open body language. What is an open body language? Where you expand. Okay. Let's understand again evolutionary psychology. In a hunter-gatherer world, when every time there was some threatening situation, let's say if someone took up a knife and started running towards you, the first thing that you would do is you cover the vital organs of your body, the heart, the stomach, the liver, by closing your hands. Okay. Now, that's what a normal response is. So what really body does is every time there is a threatening situation, it closes itself. Now, I want you to remember that the mind can influence the body, but the body also influences the mind. That's scientific. There was a research done by Annie Cuddy. What she found out is that every time you expand your body, the testosterone levels in your body go up by 20% momentarily. And cortisol levels, that is stress hormone, come down 20%. That makes you feel more confident and less stressed. So every time you close your body, you're signaling your mind that something is wrong. It's threatening out there. It's nervous. I'm feeling something is wrong. Every time you open your body, what are you telling your mind? You're telling your mind that everything is okay. The situation is fine. And that's how you feel confident, right? The way mind influences the body is the way the body influences the mind. So the body language makes a big difference on your mindset. That's why yoga is powerful. Okay. So 4 things we talked about, 4 ways to manage stage fright. Number 1, breathe. How would you breathe? Relax. The way you breathe is the way you live. Exercise, pump yourself up. Turn fear into excitement by setting the context right in your head and keeping your body language open so that your mind thinks that everything is okay. Okay. Did you guys like these 4 ideas? If you like these ideas, type like in the chat box. Sardi says like. Uday, Suresh, so many people like. Wonderful. But the final thing I want you to remember to let go of, manage the stage fright is let go of the outcome. The reason we fear stage fright, like I said, is because we fear the judgment. And the only way to overcome judgment is to let go of the outcome. If I'm going on stage and I think that I have to impress these 425 people in the room, I will be very scared. I will be scared about if my session will go right or not. But if I just tell myself, even if the session goes okay, I'm okay. Even if I make a mistake, I know these guys are human beings. They would understand. Right? Will you guys understand if I made a mistake here? I'm sure you would. That's human. That's part of being human, right? And that's why let go of the outcome. Even if the session, even if your speech, even if you make a mistake, that's okay. All right. And that's how you manage stage fright. If you see, all of it is actually about the mind and not about the skills. With that, let's move to the next thing. Now, the next question people ask me often is, Akshat, how not to go on blank? Do you guys face this problem? Do you guys go blank on stage sometimes? How many of you have felt this? Type yes in the chat box. Fayaz, Shiva, Sharadi, Arun, Rakesh, all of us have felt this. That sometimes when we go on stage and we have no idea what to say, right? Especially those situations where your boss tells you that you have to give a farewell speech for a colleague who's leaving the company. Have you been in that situation where you had to give a speech for a colleague leaving the company? What do you usually say? Okay, it was great having you, Arun, with us. I wish you all the best for your next journey. A little bit of everything, right? What if I gave you a strategy that you can use to handle such public situations? Will you not only create interest in what you speak, but also not go blank? So, not go blank and create more interest, right? So, the strategy is okay, and here is the strategy. I want you to look closely. The strategy is to tell a story or share an experience. For example, let's say someone tells you, let's say someone comes and tells you that you have to deliver a speech, a farewell speech for a colleague who's leaving. No, rather than just wishing your colleague your wishes or talking about how good it was meeting, having that person in the team, share an experience with that colleague. Something like, I met Abhishek 2 years ago when he joined the company. I remember how first day he came up to me and he asked for help. And we instantly became friends. And then we used to go out, have tea together. We often went out with our families together and we built this friendship and talk about something specific, right? You can talk about something specific. So what you're really doing is you're not wondering about what to say next. In fact, you have an entire story in your head. Do you remember the journey, how you met this guy and how your relationship continued, right? You just have to tell that story. Another example would be, let's say, you've been given an award of Employee of the Year. And the Employee of the Year award, most people would go and say simple things like, it was wonderful to have this award and I thank everybody. But rather than just talking about what the award is, why you are grateful for it, you can talk about what you did to get this award. You can start with something like, last year we got this particular project and we had no idea how we would do it. So at the middle of the night, I called up my friends, my colleagues, and I told them the challenge that we had. And instantly, everybody said, yes, we will take it. And every weekend, we sat down together. We planned something like this, right? So using just stories, and you would never go blank. Every time you're on stage, if you have to raise a toast, speak at a party for your friend, it's your friend's birthday, and you have to speak there, think of a story, how you guys met. Share an experience, what you guys did together. You just think in stories, you will never go blank on stage. Also, it will make sure that whatever you speak is well structured because story is easy to remember. Rather than talking about random things, think of a story. Now, you might ask me, Akshat, why do you tell a story? Of course, I told you two reasons. It's easy to tell, it's more structured. But there's third reason why to tell a story. So there was a research done in a university in America, of course, in America, a university. The research said that what they did, they made a lot of people sit in a room and share personal stories with each other. And they connected their brains with certain wirings, whatever these guys do. What they found out is the kind of thought, the kind of images the storyteller had, the same images were in the brain of the other guy, the person who was listening. So in a way, their brains came in sync. They called it coupling. Peer-to-peer coupling is what they called it. What they found out is that every time you tell story and the other person is engrossed in listening that story, you kind of sync with that person. Your brains go in sync. If you look at the way human beings have evolved for millions of years, they did not have Netflix. They did not have Amazon Prime. They did not have anything. The only thing they had in their life to pass on the knowledge, to inspire people were stories. If they wanted to give information, they gave in the form of stories. All epics are stories. That's how they entertained each other. That's how they gave information. So human mind has evolved in a way that reacts very positively to stories. Right? So sharing stories is something that will definitely help you build a better connect with your audience, right? Would you guys agree? Sharing stories? Do you guys like listening to stories? If you like, type yes. Wonderful. So what are the kind of stories that you can share? There are three kinds of stories that you can share with your audience. Okay. First one is a personal story, a personal experience that you might have gone through. Could be anything. Could be anything. Right? What you did in your last trip, how you live your day, everything is a story. The second kind of story that you can share is story of someone else, story of Steve Jobs, story of Mahatma Gandhi, story of anybody else. And finally, the third kind of story that people like to hear are brand stories. How did Apple grew from a very small company in San Francisco, such a big multinational company, or brand stories of Flipkart or any other company that is there right now. So there are three kinds of stories that you can say: personal stories, stories of others, and brand stories. Right? We're talking about how not to go brand. And the first technique we discussed is think in the form of a story. If you're on stage, think of an experience. The second thing I want you to do is speak slowly and take pauses. Do you guys have this problem that when you speak, there are too many ahs and ums? Do you guys use this ahs and ums fillers? If you use, type yes in the chat box. I can see so many people who face this issue with ahs, ums, fillers. Vijay says no. Wonderful, Vijay. What about others? So I see a lot of people, right? So when you speak slowly, you give yourself time. And that's how you remove those ahs and ums. When you pause, you give yourself more time to think. Pause, you can think of what's coming next. It's how the brain works. Okay? So rather than speaking fast, thinking in stories, but I want to tell them slowly. Pause. Okay. That's how you will not go blank. So can someone tell me when should you pause? What are some times when you should take a pause? I'm looking for some answers in the chat. Under what situations? I'll give you an example. You must pause after asking a question to the audience. Changing topics, wonderful. When you go blank, of course. If I don't remember anything, it's okay to pause. When you're lost, pause. When you're short of words, pause. That will help you think. When the other person is talking, absolutely. Wonderful. After completing a scenario, wonderful, Shriyarsha. Right? So every time, so there are basically 3-4 times when you should pause. The one is after asking a question. If you've asked a question to your audience, pause. If you look at me, I'm asking you a question and I'm pausing for your answers. Right? That's when you pause. You also pause every time there is some change in the presentation. The transition in your presentation. You're speaking and now you're moving into some other direction, you can always pause. Right? Third time you pause is every time you say something humorous. You give them time to speak. You give them time to absorb the joke. The next time you pause is when you say something impactful. Okay? So certain times when you should pause. Remember to pause when you speak. Will you guys remember to pause when you speak? Will you guys remember? If you will, type yes. I absolutely love how you guys are responding and you're doing in corporate. So Rakesh is saying in corporate, they'll give you 5 minutes, finish your topic. Yes, but you speak less with pauses. You'll speak more impactfully. A lot of times we think that if we speak more, we'll be more impactful. That is not the case. When you speak less, that's when you're more impactful. Okay. We'll talk more about it. Now, how to practice not going blank. So I wanted to download this app called Impromptu Generator from the App Store. What this app will do, it will give you random topics to talk about. So download this app, click on the button, it will give you a topic and just start speaking on it. Think of a story, speak slowly, take pauses, and test your own self. How good are you speaking? On a random topic, think of a story, take pauses, speak slowly, and consume a lot of content. So I remember I was at I was at a corporate speaking one day, and someone asked me a question that was off the topic. So I was talking about public speaking, of course, but this person started asking me about artificial intelligence. Now, I'm not a technologist, but just because I had watched certain content on artificial intelligence, I was able to connect artificial intelligence and my topic and give them something to ponder about. So when you consume a lot of content, whether it be in forms of videos, books, or anything, that's where you build your mind. So all of that knowledge that you've gained, it never goes to waste. Especially if you're a speaker, having more knowledge will always help, because that's how you'll be able to connect different pieces together and build something. For example, the way I use evolutionary psychology and public speaking together to give you a concept that would help. Okay. I read different books, connected them, and gave it to you. When you consume content, you will always have something to say. You will never go blank. Okay. So 5 steps to not go blank. Tell a story, either a personal story, someone else's story, a brand story. When you speak, speak slowly, take pauses, practice. How would you practice? Download this app, speak impromptu, consume a lot of content on a day-to-day basis, right? Something that interests you. We'll talk more about it at the end. Now let's look at some body languages to avoid. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video and I want you to tell me in the chat box, what do you think is wrong with this video? So I'll play this video and then tell me your thoughts in the chat box. So you look at this body language. He's shifting, holding a stage, no eye contact, nervousness, very casual, looking very nervous, closed body language, doesn't look interested, shrinking body. Wonderful. You guys have got it all right. Extra movements. I want you to remember that every time you are on stage or whether you're speaking to someone one-on-one, your body language is 50%, 55% of all communication. So all communication, body language is 55%. 23% is your tone. The rest is 33% is your tone. And I guess the rest, 5-7% is the words that you speak. So as a speaker, the first thing that you need to remember is to have the right body language. Okay. We talked about the open body language. It makes you feel confident by increasing your testosterone level, decreasing your cortisol levels, right? Let's look at some body language to absolutely avoid on stage. You cannot have these body language on stage. The first body language to avoid is this. Can someone tell me what is this? What body language is this? Closed hands, mind block, crossed arms. So every time you close your body is when you close your mind. I want you to remember this, okay? Not to have closed hands on stage. Never. Not as a speaker. Can someone tell me what is this body language? Of course, it's on the slide, but still. It's casual. So it's basically hands in pocket. If you see the person is speaking, his hand, if the person is speaking, this is good when you're in party, when you are standing somewhere, this body language is good, but not on stage. Not on stage. Okay. Why? Why should you not put your hands in pocket on stage? Now, there is again a reason for it, a scientific reason. As per science, our hands are connected to our brains more than anything. When you use your hands to speak, it shows conviction. your conviction, your passion, your energy is conveyed through gestures. And if you put your hands in pocket, you'll not be able to show that conviction. So that's the reason not to have this body language. Okay. There's one more reason that we'll talk about after this slide. Can someone tell me what is this and what does it convey? Nervous, tension, fear, underconfident, stressed, sign of nervousness? Absolutely. So hands clenched means the person is nervous. So not to have this body language on stage. Rather, this is better. Can you see me? This one. This is called as a steeple. So if you're on stage and your hands are like this, somewhere below your heart, yes, this is still okay. But not to have this clenched body language. So what are some body languages that you must have? Now, as per evolutionary psychology, these palms, can you see the palms? These palms. When you show these palms to someone, they feel more, they trust you even more subconsciously. Why is that? Let's go back to millions of years, the hunter-gatherer world. Now you must be wondering, Akshat is quoting so many things from hunter-gatherer world, but because that's what defines us today. All of that history, we cannot forget it. So when you show these palms, it builds trust. Why? In the hunter-gatherer world, every time two strangers met, they always checked for each other's palms to see if the other person is carrying any weapons. And when they saw open palms, that's when they could trust each other. That this guy does not have any weapons in his hand. And now, even though situation has changed, the subconscious mind is still the same, right? So every time you meet someone new, or whether you're on stage, you have to make sure that from time to time, your palms are visible to the audience. And that way, they will trust you more subconsciously. There's another question that people ask me, what do I do with my hands when I'm speaking? Right? Do you have this question? If you have this question, type yes in the chat box. What to do with my hands? So many people have this question. I love that. I love you guys responding to questions. Wonderful. Now, there is a simple technique that you need to remember. Okay. Every time you're speaking, make sure that your hands are above your waist. Above your waist. Waist, above the waist, right? And they're open. And then you use your hands normally to speak. If you just have your hands above your waist, you will do something with them. If you speak about something you believe in, gestures will come automatically. If you would have noticed in your day-to-day conversations, gestures come automatically. If you guys notice this, you must have noticed, right? That's where this has to be replicated in when you're on stage, right? Brilliant. So, do you guys enjoy, are you guys loving the session till now? If you're loving the session till now, type love in the chat box. Wonderful. Let's move to the next part of today. Now, some common mistakes that people often do in presentations. This is something I want you guys to pay a lot of attention to, because I know a lot of you might be doing a lot of presentations in office. You might be speaking in meetings. You might be talking to clients. So some very common mistakes in presentations. The first one is too much text and reading from the slides. How many of you have done this? Standing there and reading from slides. I have done that, especially when I was in college. I used to make my presentations and I used to read out what I've written. Have you guys done this in college? Yes, Rajesh says yes, done in college. Right? Reading from slides is something that is an absolute no. Okay? We make slides so that we remember the structure, so that we remember what is being, what is it that we want to convey, and to give ourselves a direction, a session, a direction. Also to make sure that people remember what we are talking. Okay. So the first one is not to have a lot of text and not to read from the slides. The second one is not using images and videos. So let's understand, human beings are visual beings. When we see something, we will remember it for a longer time. And most of our information, we get it through our eyes. Eyes is our most dominant sense. So when you put on videos, when you put some images, if you would see in my presentation, I put a lot of images. It gives you more messages than the text, right? Also, it's easier to understand. Okay. So not having images and videos in your presentation is a big mistake, right? Once I finish this, I want you guys to take a screenshot of this. Not sharing experiences. So I've seen a lot of office presentations, a lot of technical presentations where people go and just give a lot of information and they don't share any experience. For example, if you're presenting a business proposal to a client, just not just by telling what you're going to do for them, you also have to share what you did with the last client or what you did earlier. When you share experiences, you build credibility. When you share experiences, you bring in some kind of emotion. When you share experiences, people love to hear you. All focus on information. Okay. Human beings are emotional creatures. So I remember I went to one of the corporates to take a session, and I found out that a lot of people did not remember the information that I gave, but also they remember the stories that I talked about. And that is something that you would also experience, right? So bad opening is the next thing that you need to avoid. Imagine if this session I started something like, good morning, everybody. My name is Akshat, and today we're going to learn about public speaking. Many of you wouldn't be interested in starting. Instead, I asked you guys a question. Then I asked you to talk about it. Then I gave my story, right? So every time you go in a presentation, don't start with good morning. Don't start with your introduction. Ask a question, tell a quotation, talk about a fact, talk about something different that will help you grab the attention. Finally, being late is a big presentation. Being late in presentations is a big mistake. Why is it a big mistake? I remember I went to a speech contest long back. As in when I went into the room, I found out that I was late. I was in fact 5-10 minutes late. Everybody was seated, and I just had to go on stage directly. Now, when I was speaking, I found out that there was a big box kind of thing that was on the stage. If I had been earlier on the stage, I would have made sure that I understood how much of the stage I'll be using. But since I went late, I had to manage that myself in a very small place. And that actually restricted my body language, that restricted my stage usage. And that did impact my performance that day. So when you go early, you go and you feel the stage, you feel the audience, you talk to people one on one. I remember, I think Tony Robbins, in one of his videos, he talked about how before any session, he goes and talks to people one on one. When he goes and talks to people one on one, he feels more comfortable with those people. If you go on stage directly and start speaking, you will be more scared. But before the session, if you go and meet people one on one, you will become more comfortable. Of course, first impression, Aditya, you're right. First impressions matter a lot, right? The last mistake that a lot of people make in presentations is saying sorry. Now, when is it okay to say sorry? For example, if I gave you some wrong content, some wrong fact, right? That's when I can say, sorry, I gave you something wrong. But that wouldn't really happen because I've already prepared for my presentation. Saying sorry is wrong when you made a mistake. No, in this session, I might have made some mistakes. But if I said that, sorry, you would have caught those mistakes. Many times, your audience will not even get to know if you made a mistake. And by saying sorry, you're only highlighting those mistakes. So if you go on stage and you make a mistake, if you forget something, if you do something wrong, just relax. Start from the next thing. Your audience does not know that you forgot. Okay. So 7 common mistakes in presentations. I want you guys to take a screenshot right away. I hope you guys would have taken the screenshot by now. So 5 steps to become an impactful speaker. How can anybody become an impactful speaker? The first one is always start with why. When I started speaking, my reason to become a speaker was to become more confident, to look talented in front of people. I wanted to go out and perform well. That was my reason why I started learning public speaking. It could be different for you. Maybe you want to build a brand, a stronger brand. Maybe you want to network with people. Maybe you want to build your self-esteem. Maybe you want to overcome some limiting beliefs. You have to understand, right? If like Simon Sinek says that always start with why, right? Have you guys heard of Simon Sinek? If you have heard of Simon Sinek, type heard in the chat box. Heard, right? So start with why. Ask why you want to do it. Because I've seen in my journey, I've seen so many people who start with a lot of passion and energy. I want to become a speaker. They join a speaking community, gave 2 speeches, and then, right, have a strong reason to become a speaker. Because when you have a strong reason, you'll find a way. Second step is to join a speaking community. A community like Toastmasters. Most of you guys I see are from metro cities, Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad. There are a lot of Toastmasters clubs there. There are people who run their own communities. If you cannot find a community, start your own. Find 5 people and start a community. Fix a time every Sunday where you will catch up together and tell each other's 2-minute stories, half an hour meeting, something like that, right? Because only when you have a community is when you learn things. You want to go a gym. When you join a gym, that's when you get fit. Doing things alone is very difficult. And that's why I often tell people that if you want to become a singer, find where singers are. If you want to become a dancer, find where the dancers are. If you want to become a speaker, find where the speakers. The third thing is a self-evaluation. So what I used to do when I started my speaking journey is that every time I gave a speech, I always came back and looked at the speech recording. Every time I spoke, I came back and looked at the recording, tried to find out what are the areas I did well and what are the areas I could work upon. So video camera is something that will really help you become a powerful. The fourth step is to find a mentor and coach. Find someone who can help you do this evaluation for yourself. So can someone tell me what are the parameters for evaluation in the chat box? What are the some areas that you need to evaluate yourself on when you're evaluating your speech or your session? We discuss a lot of things in the starting: confidence, content, body language. What else? Gestures, continuity, pauses, tension, thought process, rate of speech, wonderful, smoothness, timely ending. That reminds me that we have 2 more minutes. Voice, right? So you know the parameters on which you need to evaluate yourself. Okay, a self-evaluation is critical. Finding a mentor coach who will help you evaluate on these parameters. And finally, and the most important thing to become an impactful speaker is personal growth. What I feel sets me apart as a speaker is the kind of personal growth I've gained from reading books. Like I told you, evolutionary psychology, business, public speaking, presentations, a lot of different things. I've read a lot of different things. And when I'm able to connect these things together, I'm able to give a new perspective to the audience. The more personally you grow in your life is how better you'll get as a speaker. Okay. 5 steps to become an impactful speaker. Start with why, join a speaking community, evaluate yourself after every performance, find a mentor and coach, and continuously grow in your personal life. Take up more challenges, go on an adventure trip, do something crazy, take risks, start a business, fail. All of these things are giving you stories to tell. And these stories will set you apart in your journey as a speaker. Right? Aditya says, जिसके साथ रहोगे उसके जैसे बनोगे. Absolutely, Aditya. That's right. So that brings me to the final slide for today. Some books and references that you can use to grow in your journey as a speaker. First book is Talk Like TED. It is a must read that I love this book and I want you to read this, Carmine Gallo. The second is Definite Art of Body Language by Alan Pease. It will teach you all the different ways a body language actually affects our life in day-to-day, in our day-to-day conversations, in our day-to-day things that we do. The Storyteller's Secret, again by Carmine Gallo. Art of Public Speaking by Dale Carnegie, right? And the fifth one is my own newsletter that I've started recently. It's called Conquer the Stage, where I share a lot of things about public speaking presentations that I've gained over these years as a speaker. Okay. Now is the time for my gift to you that I promised in the start. And the gift is, it is a free trial, a free subscription to my newsletter, Conquer the Stage, that I've started recently. Okay, so I'm going to share the link in the chat box so that you can find it. And if you like it, something that you would like to try, it's a free trial that we have. Just a second. So I will just put this in the chat box. You can check it out. This is my gift to you, a free trial to my newsletter. It's called Conquer the Stage. Check it out and let me know what you think about it. Right now, I think we have completed 1 hour. We are 1 minute late, and I open the stage for any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Akshat, for that wonderful presentation and taking us through that series of topics that you've curated for us today. We'll open the floor now for question and answers. Please request everyone to raise their hands if you have any questions that you want to ask Akshat, or you can also put these questions in the chat box or the Q&A section. And while we are doing the question and answers, I would also like to take this opportunity to put a poll, a feedback poll, right in front of you that you can take a minute to answer. It'll help us curate more sessions, bring speakers like Akshat himself for our consecutive sessions, and give you the best of information, get you the best of knowledge from these people. While we are doing the feedback poll, we can also take a couple of questions. If you want to ask something to Akshat, please raise your hands, or you can put your questions in the chat box. Okay, Akshat, we have one question from Vimal. I'll read it out for you. What happens when you do presentations over online with your video off? What happens in those cases? No body languages are seen by the audience.
Right. So let's understand, like I told you, that human beings are visual beings. When we see things, we grab more information. Okay. If someone tells you that I'm very happy, but they have a stern face, it gives you a different message. But when they look happy, you know that person is really happy. Okay. So, like I said, 55% of all communication happens through body language. Now, when you put your video off during an online presentation, you're removing that 55% of communication. You're removing that audience connect that you could have with. So if you see, a lot of times I usually avoid, in my meetings especially, I avoid having any slides. Since this was a webinar, I couldn't see the participants. That's the reason we have a lot of slides. Otherwise, most of the time, I don't even use the slides. I just look at the people through my body language and I speak. Because when you look at people, that's when the connect is built. That's when you show your authenticity. That's how you show your expressions and your body language. So it makes a big difference if you switch on your video. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much for that answer, Akshat. Another question in the chat box is there any place where I can go physically and practice public speaking?
Absolutely. So you can join a Toastmasters club. That's something I would recommend a lot of all of you. Apart from that, you can also find other communities. So a lot of people run their own speaking communities. So you'll have to find that on Google, what community is there in your city, because there are always people doing it.
Great. Thanks for that answer. I have an interesting question, Akshat, here. That let's suppose if there are many audience in front of you who are noisy and you want to put your point forward, how do you make them silent? I mean, are there any tips and techniques that you can bring them to a still and then continue your speech?
So when you say noisy, it could mean a lot of things. Probably this really usually happens in colleges. I've not seen anywhere else, because in colleges, the kids are very naughty and they usually do a lot of things. So in that situation, like I say, your stage presence will say more about you than your content. How you go and stand there. Few things that I would do. So I've never faced a situation where people are very noisy and doing it. But what I would do in such a situation is that I would become silent. I will pause and I will look at everybody. I will let them make the noise. Because when you stop there and you look at everybody, everybody will usually, unless they really want to offend you or they're doing it intentionally, if you just go and stand there, people will get settled and start looking at you. So that's what I always do before going in any session. If I'm doing a physical session, I go and just stand. I look at everybody for 3-4 seconds. When everybody is quiet, that's when I start speaking. If someone is doing it intentionally to disarm you or make you to discourage you, nothing can be done there.
That's a good strategy, actually. We have another question from Aditya. He says, if you're in fear, how do you focus on body language?
So you will be in fear, of course. There will be times when nothing can be done. And fear, like I told you, it's evolutionary. Fear will be there. You try to calm yourself down. You do whatever the things we discussed, 4-5 things, right? Now you go on stage and you don't know what, like you're afraid. You cannot focus on the body language. Just remember one thing, that you have to keep your body language open. Don't focus. If you're focus on the content, and just remember to keep an open body language. Okay. Eventually, with time, you will be able to focus on the content as well as on your body language. It will happen with time.
Understood. So the next question is from Mehak. Mehak is saying, how to engage audience on online webinar when people are not responding because they are all on with their cameras off, certainly, right? So this is one point that I usually talk to all my speakers as well, because we know we are in a webinar setup. The speakers can't see the audience, but how do you engage audience when you're in a mode like this?
So, did you notice something today in the session? How I did it? Shiva, well, anything you would like to think? Like, what do you think I did something different normally today? So, I'm asking you a counter question here. I think you're on mute.
Akshay, you're asking me?
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry, I thought you were asking the audience. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question, please?
So, since you mentioned me how to engage the audience in
Yeah,
in an online fashion when people don't have the cameras, right?
correct,
Right now, we cannot see the audience as a
correct,
speaker, right?
correct, correct.
What do you think I did?
Akshay, to start off with, one thing that I've noticed is since the beginning, you've been asking a lot of questions so that people can respond. So it makes them active, it keeps them hooked to the session. Right? If it is a one-way communication, if you're just reading out of the slides or you're trying to say whatever you're trying to say and people are just listening, there's no two-way communication, and hence the speaker, so the participant can just go off anytime.
Absolutely, you're right. So the idea is to ask easy questions and ask easy answers. In a chat box, type yes. Anybody can type yes. They don't have to type one big sentence. Type heard, type like, type love. That's how they are responding. That's what you do. But if people have decided that no matter what you do, you will not respond, you can't do anything. That's where, so it entirely depends on audience to audience, right? It's like, it's pretty contextual and it depends on audience to audience what you will do there. Like today, the audience was very energetic. It's very easy to engage.
Thanks, Akshat. So there's another interesting question, Akshat, that I came across in the chat box. Is like, after so many conversations and public presentation and public speeches, Harita is asking, can you speak normally to your friends and family, or all these tips and techniques sort of creep in when you're talking to your family and friends also?
They actually happen to reflect in all aspects of your life. So when I started writing my speeches, now when you write speeches, there are certain metaphors we use when we use different rhetorical devices. If you would have heard that speech, I have a dream, and Martin Luther King talks about every time he says something, he says, I have a dream. So that's a rhetorical device. Now, every time I used to write my speeches, I used to use rhetorical devices. I used to use triads. I used to use all those things while writing my speeches. Now, I've done it so many times that actually it has become my behavior. Even if I go and talk to people on one to one, that's how I will talk.
Understood.
Kind of strange, but you can't really help it.
Yeah. Question, Akshat, is from Rakesh Bedi. He says, I had stammering in the school time, but I have overcome it over a period of time. I'm absolutely fine one-to-one small groups, but in big presentations, the stammering plays a subconscious game in my mind. So, how to overcome that? Do you have any tip or technique to overcome the stammering problem?
Right. So if you have overcome this in one to one, you would overcome this with in public also. Okay. Only thing that's differentiating between the one to one and public is the fear. Because if you're comfortable doing, you're not stammering, speaking one to one. It's the fear that's making you stammer in public. Okay. So the idea is to put your mind to rest. Again, use those techniques, breathing techniques. Try to calm it down. Right? Like, I'll tell you a truth, an absolute truth about public speaking and stage fright. Right? No one can overcome it completely. Even the big shots, Tony Robbins and these guys, Robin Sharma, I talk about, they have not overcome the complete stage fright. No one can do it completely because it's subconscious, it's evolutionary, it's there with us. We can only learn to manage it. Today, if I go and talk to a new audience on a new subject, I will feel scared for a moment. The fear will always be there. The idea is to go and speak irrespective of that fear. So keep that fear and still go and speak slowly and steadily. You'll learn to manage it, and the stammering would go away.
Thank you, Akshat. So we have another question. Partly, I am also interested to know the answer to this question. Is what can I do to go from addressing or speaking to small groups in a room to become a TEDx speaker, sort of speaking to people in 100 plus numbers? Do you have a strategy? Do you have a roadmap where people can go to these levels?
Hmm. I can tell you the strategy that I'm using to it, or the strategy I used. So I used the social media strategy. So I was speaking in small groups here and there in Toastmasters in my sessions. But then I used LinkedIn to put out my content, put out my videos, to share my stories. And slowly and steadily, I started gaining a lot of following there. Slowly and steadily, these people started inviting me here and there. In fact, Shiva also found me on LinkedIn. Okay. That's a strategy. Putting out yourself on the social media. Social media is the greatest thing that you can use to show your talent to the world. And the more you do it, people will slowly and steadily over the years, it will take years. It took me 2 years, probably take you less than me, more than me. I don't know. But if you just start putting yourself out there, you will find a way. People are always looking for people who can speak, teach, and educate.
Absolutely wonderful answer. So, Akshat, another question from Asim Kumar Saha is: does appearance matter in public speaking?
So when
And
you
if it matters, to what extent does it matter?
so when you say appearance, what do you mean by it? Are you looking at the beauty of the face, or are you looking at the dressing sense of the person? Because what I have understood is that the better you look, the more you can influence people. Now, when I say better you look, means the better you dress up, the better your body language is. Okay. Like I said, body language is the most important aspect of your look. A simple picture where a closed body language and a person with an open body language can look very different. They can look like two different people, in fact. So, to have the right body language, to have the right dressing sense, to be properly groomed. Imagine if I had come for a session in pajamas or in chappals, you wouldn't have respected me as much. You wouldn't have taken me so seriously. Now, someone might tell me that Bill Gates and no Facebook founder, all these guys wear only t-shirts. They are already a brand. Everybody knows them. For people like you and me who are building a brand, who are still growing in our lives, for us, dressing matters. For us, we wear a suit, we look more professional. So yes, appearance matter in public speaking. Body language, how you dress, how you groom yourself. Are you having a proper haircut? Are you having a proper beard? All of those things, they definitely matter.
Thank you so much, Akshat. So we have Varun also who wanted to ask you a question directly. Varun Shivakumar, if you can
Yes.
hear me, please ask your question. Varun Shivakumar.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking like While giving some presentation or speaking, I'm just very intent about my body language. Most of the time, I just keep my hands closed or maybe fold my hands. So how can I overcome it?
Right.
It's
Varun,
been a
remember,
great challenge.
right. Remember, I told you that every time you're speaking, you need to put your hands above your waist.
Okay.
Okay. And keep them open like this, like above your waist, keep them open, and then speak normally using your hands like this. Okay. There is
But
no
what?
fixed rule. Sorry.
But what about the gestures? If I'm speaking something, what
See,
about the gestures I need to use? Hand gestures maybe. How
there
can
are
I
no
utilize it?
there are no fixed rules to it. Okay, there are no fixed rules to it. It's just that whatever you speak, you can show it with your hands. I decided to go there,
Hmm.
and then my friend came up to me, and together we decided to do something good. We will do something good. So whatever I'm saying, I'm trying to reflect it through my gestures. Can you say it, Varun?
Okay. But when I'm nervous, I cannot concentrate on my hand, right? Then
Right.
I'll obviously fold my hands.
Slowly and steadily, you will get there. In one or two presentations, see, understand, it's always a journey. Okay? When you start, the first thing you start, you will not start with body language. First thing you'll start is by managing your stage fright. When you've learned to manage stage fright a little bit, you'll start polishing, working more on the content. Once you've understood how to deliver content, then you will probably come and understand the right body language. Then once you've understood that, then probably you'll also start focusing on your vocal variety. Then probably you'll start focusing on how to structure it, how to inspire someone. So it's a journey, it's a step-by-step process. Okay. So that's why I say the number of times you go on stage, have understand the different parameters that are there. Okay, the more times you go on stage, the more you'll understand these parameters. And that's the reason that recording, self-evaluation is very important.
Okay, I think that's fine. I got my answer.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Varun, for asking that wonderful question. Okay. Sushant Diore. Sushant
Hey,
Diore, you
hi
can
Shiva. Yeah.
yeah, Sushant, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
So can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for such a wonderful session. It would be really fruitful for us, and definitely we will follow your do and don'ts. So thank you so much for uh, this meeting. And
Thank you
my
for
question, yeah. So my question is, you said we have to always speak slowly, and we never rush for while we speak. But the one thing which I have observed, that when people speak slowly, we easily get bored because we never see that energy, enthusiasm in their language. But if you compare with other people, they speak louder, they shout when while their presentations, and they speak very faster. So we easily attract to them and we listen them carefully. So my question is, in which situations we have to speak slowly, in which situations we can speak louder and faster?
very good question, Sushant. Very good question. When I say speak slowly, that means the pace. Okay, the pace I'm talking about. And I'm talking about when you cannot think of what to say next. In a situation where you feel you're getting blank, that is where you speak slowly. Okay, so that you find yourself more time to think what to tell. What situations do you go fast? Especially when you're talking about something exciting. When you're talking about something you don't want to do fast, that's where you go fast. That's vocal variety. So vocal variety consists of 4 to 5 things. One is the volume. Go loud, go slow in your volume. Go fast, go slow in the pace. What should be the tone? What should be all these things matter in vocal variety. But so vocal variety is something that is something I've not covered in the session today. And I'll tell you honestly, there is no fixed rule to it. It's just that when you start speaking from the heart, all of it would come naturally. Have you seen a kid, a small kid, 3, 4 year toddler? When the person is angry, they would look like they're angry. When they're excited, it would be visible. You can clearly listen in their voice that they're excited. If they're sad, you can hear their voice and feel that they're sad. They're so natural at it. But as we grow up, we forget vocal variety. We start thinking too much of the technicalities. So if you just feel what you're saying, right, you will know when to go fast, when to go slow. But when you cannot, when you're going blank, that's where speak slowly. so that you give your mind more time to think. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Akshat. Thank you so much.
Very wonderfully said, Akshat. Thanks, Sushant, for your question. Anita, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
I hope I'm audible now.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Thank you, Shiva. Thank you, Akshat, for this wonderful session. It really helped. My question is about when I'm speaking in a room full of people, I'm confident. But when I'm on the stage, I have a mic in my hand. The mic gives the anxiety where your voice is amplified and it reaches to maximum people. How do you overcome that fear when you have a mic in your hand against no mic and you're just speaking on your own?
Okay. What you're saying is that a mic gives you anxiety, not the public. Is that what you mean, Anita?
That's right.
Okay. Again, when do we feel fear? We feel fear when something in our brain says this is wrong, this is not right. Fear is not something that's very conscious. So remember those few techniques that I talked about, Anita? Deep breathing, exercising a little bit before the session, having an open body language. Those things will make you feel less of that. Now, it would not be removed in one day, but the more times you hold the mic, the more comfortable you'll get. It's like driving. The first time you held the steering, so if you hold the steering in an open ground, you're more confident. But when you're holding that same steering in traffic, you're more anxious. It's the same steering. It's just that the more times you hold it in traffic, the more confident you'll get. So for my suggestion to you is to hold the mic more times. And it will eventually go. Since you're not afraid of the public, you're more afraid of the mic, hold it more often. Use more often.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Akshay.
Thanks, Anita, for that question. Akshat, one question out of the chat box, a little interesting question also, is Shivam Shukla is asking that in a small group, it happens a few times that a few people want to interrupt your flow and comment something stupid, right? How to come up with quick and witty replies without offending them or anyone, and how to keep things going. You must have been in these situations a lot more than any one of us. So looking forward to that answer.
So why do you think that happens? When do people see? If you see in general, people will only do these things when they don't take you seriously. So the first thing is not to get into such situations. Now there will be times. So every time you go on stage, you always set your credibility first. To persuade an audience, have you heard of Aristotle? If you have heard of Aristotle, he says there are three things you need to persuade an audience: credibility, good credibility, logic, and emotion. If you have even one of these three things, good credibility, emotion, or logic, people would not do stupid comments. Because if these things are there, they would be engrossed in listening. What is this guy telling? The first thing is not even, preparing your speech or session in such a way that people take you more seriously. By setting your credibility right, by having those emotional situations, talking about some to the point facts. But let's say, even if you do everything right, and there are few people who are still commenting on it, okay, how to give a witty reply? There is no answer to it. There is no fixed rule to it. What I would instead do is that I would ask them a question. For example, let's say I'm talking about public speaking and I told that deep breathing will help you become more calm. And someone just commented that I don't think that will work. So so if it's a physical situation, if it's an online situation and the question is in the comment, I would ignore it. But if it's a physical situation where it's interrupting the flow, I would ask that question: what makes you think so? Every time someone comments at you, first thing, if you can ignore. But if you cannot ignore, ask them a question. Something in human psychology makes us fearful of questions. That's why we fear interviews. To ask someone a question, their aggression will go down. If someone is commenting, ask them a question. What makes you feel? Why do you think that's true? Can you tell me something else about it? When you ask a question, you show authority, you project confidence, you project conviction. And that's how I would, if that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks for that answer. Akshit. That's a good one, actually. So we have another question from Takuban. Uh, says, I'm introvert by nature and I really get anxiety attacks whenever I have to present in front of a panel. I'm able to do it, but it's really a stressful experience. How do I overcome that feeling?
Okay. The first thing I want you guys to remember that introverts and extroverts have nothing to do related with public speaking. Some of the best speakers I know in my life are introverts. Being introvert or an extrovert means how you get your energy. If you're an introvert, you get your energy by being alone. If you're an extrovert, you get energy from people. But again, if you're an introvert, it does not mean you cannot be a good speaker. In fact, introverts have a strength over other extroverts. The strength is introverts speak more to the point. Extroverts may speak here and there about a lot of things, but introverts are always to the point. They'll speak less, they'll speak more and less words. You have a strength there. Since you mentioned introvert, being an introvert, I told this to you. That's your strength. Again, the question I think is pretty similar. How to present it confidently? I think we've tried to answer that question. I would answer it once again that I don't know how to answer it one more time in a new way.
In fact, this particular question reminded me of a situation when I was early, in my careers. I used to go out for interviews, and there used to be a session called Jam, just a minute, right?
Mhm.
So, multinational companies had this sort of first round to eliminate people, right, who are not really good at speaking. So they would give you a topic, and you just have to speak about it for a minute, right? They'll probably give you 30 seconds to collect all your thoughts and then go for it, right? So yeah, that's something that I remember out of this question.
Right. So I think we're done with the questions, or are there any more questions?
Yeah, I think we are done with the questions, Akshat. I don't see any new questions coming in.
All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed the session today.
Yeah.
And if you have any more questions, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram and put your questions to me. I would love to respond to your questions. And I wish you all best for your journey as a speaker. And I'm sure if you follow these ideas, this will certainly help you take your speaking skills to the next level.
Great. Thank you so much, Akshat, for doing this for us once again. I mean, you've been answering all the questions that came your way, without a just, right? So thank you so much. And I would also, want to take this opportunity to thank all the participants who've come in today in good numbers and making this session a successful one. We'll meet again next week with a new topic. You will get an email with the link to the recording of this session and also a link to register for our upcoming session. Thank you so much for spending your time here with us.